And then like the whole floor opened up, and they like all. I kid you not. There was like maybe like 10 people, just like not hitting each other, not touching each other, just like, I thought this was a rock show, not a dojo.
We're here with Chris from Heavy Lemon. I stole the bio from the Heavy Lemon website. So let me know if this is incorrect. But I guess for folks that don't know the enormity of Heavy Lemon in the Bay and South Bay and across, Heavy Lemon is a small organization of friends working together to host live music events in the Bay Area, California. This collective was formed in 2021 with the goal of hosting live local and touring musicians in a safer environment after much of the infrastructure for DIY events was gutted during the pandemic lockdown. And since then, Heavy Lemon has been throwing 3 to 4 shows monthly and growing the community to include amazing local talent and supporting bands on tour. And I think we were just talking about how it has gone beyond an average of 3 to 4 a month to festivals and 5+ and tons of things always, it sounds like.
It's definitely grown from that to a lot more now. Yeah, and we're trying to, and we have more stuff on the way next year. I haven't really talked about with anybody yet, but it's gonna happen. It's just, I don't know. That's always been the goal with it. Just like see how far you can take it, see how much it can grow.
Yeah. Any teasers or just bigger shows, bolder shows?
There's another fest besides Cali Kicks. California Kicks is an annual screamo festival that we've been holding in San Francisco for the last 2 years. Well, first year was in Oakland. This year was at Neck of the Woods in San Francisco. Next year will also be in San Francisco. But that's been a really fun thing for me to do. 22 bands in 2 days, 2 sort of like supplementary shows, or even sometimes 3. Like around that fest, and I'm just excited to be doing more than one fest next year, but I can't really say what else it is yet.
Oh, exciting. Yeah, California Kicks, I didn't realize that it is the only screamo festival in the Bay Area, right? Like there was kind of a huge gap between LA and PNW as far as screamo.
Absolutely. I think screamo and scrams, post-hardcore, whatever you want to call it, has been really seen a big resurgence in the past 2 years, mostly in Southern California with bands like Widow Dusk and like Versus Self, becoming these sort of like big national acts now. It's like made that genre like more popular than I think it's ever been in its entire history. And there's screamo festivals that pop up all over the U.S. So there's like Dilly Dally on the East Coast. There is Bright Days and Bright Nights, which is in Richmond, Virginia, which is the screamo capital of America.
Oh.
And then there's also New Friends Fest, which is in Toronto. There is CBR, which is Zegama Beach Records Fest in Chicago. And just this year, we've also seen a fest in Southern California called Your Renaissance put on by some promoters down there. So 2 years ago, when this was kind of all popping off, and kind of like we saw like the beginning, the rumblings of like a new like sort of like genre like kind of starting to blow up a little bit, we were approached, but I was approached by a couple of younger folks who really wanted to do a fest in the Bay Area, but wanted to get some bigger bands, and I've been around for a million years, so they were like, this dinosaur probably knows some cool people. And so we've been working together for the past 2 years, now going on into our 3rd year of Cali Kicks.
Damn. Yeah, that was packed out. So I'm actually from the DMV, so I grew up close to Richmond, Virginia. So I did grow up around a lot of like screamo and adjacent genres. And I guess I'd never thought of it. I thought it had died. I thought it wasn't around. And so Cali Kicks, it was like, this is packed out. And that kind of led me down a rabbit hole to going to Santa Rosa, where those shows, like, it's like screamo seems like it's like the whole DIY scene up there.
It is. It's like pretty wild to see how like the resurgence of the genre has been. especially because you're right. It wasn't something that was very popular prior to this. Like in 2019, there were like nobody's really playing this music. Like nobody's really like doing this a lot. There was like sort of this. There was a few bands I think that were kind of like starting to like get more popular. There was like some of these other fests had like just kind of started. But you know, it was kind of this thing where it was still a very niche genre, and I think like 2022 and onwards, it's just been you just seen this crazy resurgence. But I also think this is
Yeah.
like a weird thing to say, but it's like I also think that it's actually like going away. Like I think that like the people that have been playing this music, it's kind of funny. Most of them, a lot of them are breaking up because they're like going to college,
Oh,
and like or they're moving or they're like getting on with their lives or they're like tired of this type of music and they're like ready to do something else, right? Like there's a variety of reasons,
going to
but
college.
I think that like a lot of the bands that I've heard that are breaking up right now, they're like, oh yeah, well this person's going to college across the country and we can't really keep the band together, and it's like, man, I've been there. Yeah,
No
it's
problem. The
but I
scene is
but I
too fresh.
got it. They got to get educated. I think that's fine. I think that's okay.
Campaigning for a healthier music industry. No more
Absolutely.
starving artists.
No,
We get
they
PhDs.
they need day jobs to be able to support their night jobs.
I love that. No, that's very comforting. I feel like that's been coming up a lot, that conversation of like the starving artist versus, having a 9 to 5 plus the music.
Yeah,
And it seems like it's going out of vogue to just endorse wholeheartedly the starving artist thing. And I hear more and more people be like, just work the job, do the music on the side. Have you seen that kind of change?
I think it's been that way always.
Yeah.
I like even like an interview in the '90s with like Agent M from Tsunami Bomb, right? She
Mhm.
like they were asking her like kind of like they had just put a record out. They were kind of asking her like, how's it been? Like, what have you guys been up to? Like, kind of expecting to hear like, oh, like, we're doing all these cool shows and stuff, and they were. But what she really talked about was just like we just work all the time. Like
Mhm.
we work constantly just so that we can like get enough money to go on tour. We work constantly just enough so we can pay for our recording costs. Like all these different things. Being a DIY artist is like not glamorous. uh, you've got to pay for everything. And even if you have a label that's fronting that money for you, you probably will end up paying it like back anyway. Like it all comes back to that kind of like thing where like it all comes from the people that are involved. So I mean, I don't think that there's ever going to be a way unless there's like major buy-ins from like local governments or like state governments to like really put money towards like people who want to like make art for a living, or like support venues with that money. I think that's actually more what it is, that if you have infrastructure, then there's more of a way for people to be able to live their dreams out without having to spend 10 years of their life in a corporate job just in order to like get
Mhm.
started with like what they want to be doing creatively.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah, I've been surprised consistently. Like I thought like meeting some of the artists that I'm like, oh, you're like 300,000 listeners. Certainly you're living off of that. And
Totally.
every time I have a conversation with them, they're like, I'm horrifically in debt.
Right.
I'm horrifically in debt.
Yeah,
It's
that's
funny,
true.
but it's surprising every time. But it's
it's
crazy.
it is because music has become more accessible with streaming platforms and stuff for like just everyday people. But it for sure like has become way more expensive to make music, I think. Like just in general. Like even to go on tour or to like produce a record or to do any of these things. You can do this stuff at home for the most part if you want to. But you realize very quickly that there's a ceiling there that you can't really pierce without like the help of like of professionals, right? Of like places like um just like recording studios and stuff like that, or
Mm.
producers or people, publicists who like actually know how to like get your stuff out there and get your stuff heard. There's like a crazy ocean of music right now. Like there's so much just sheer volume, right? Is insane to me.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to cut through and find the things that really still speak to you and move you emotionally. Which is why I think that live music is really good for that, because you have people that are at least willing to take that step, like
Mm,
to go out in front of people and play their music instead of just like hoping the algorithm picks them up, you know?
100%. Yeah, I guess that loops us back, thankfully, to Heavy Lemon. I think that I've definitely been noticing that more and more I see bands that like are really growing their audience mainly from their live performances. Like their online presence is very minimal, but everyone knows their shows are crazy. There's a community around them, and it's like a whole cult thing that can grow beyond the city. I guess, have you seen that with? I'm sure you've seen that with Heavy Lemon. I think we all see that with Heavy Lemon, of building the
Sure.
community to build that momentum behind these bands.
Yeah. I think I wrote a zine a couple years ago to kind of talk about the modern music industry and how things like kind of sit or sat at the time. I've like learned a lot since writing that, but I think that it still holds true that the best way for you to get your music out there, to sell your merch, just to like get your like, you know, records in the hands of people, is to play live. It's to go out and not only play local shows but also go out on the road and meet people out there who are doing cool stuff, get inspired, like make all those things happen. I think it's actually the most profitable way to be a musician, is actually to be playing live shows. It's the only time
Mhm.
that you're directly going to be face to face with somebody who's, you know, experiencing your art for the first time or the second time or whatever. um and that's what it is doing. You have to do the thing, like,
Mm.
is a very crude way of saying it, but like you have to do art. You have to like be out there in the real world and like talking to quick people and like learning what it is that works for you, and like how you fit into like the whole thing. But uh I think a really great success story, or that I tell people a lot, I talk about a lot, is like my, like, who I consider like my second in command at Heavy Lemon, who's her name is Katie Mateague. Katie is better known for her anti-folk band called Pacing. And she's right now she's on tour with AJJ, and we miss her a lot. She's been gone for like a month. But that kind of goes to show you, like, she started as this really like online artist who kind of just like was putting music out during the pandemic and doesn't really think about it. She just liked, you know, like shit posting on Twitter, or like going on TikTok and just making silly videos of her playing these funny little songs. And she didn't really think of anything like beyond that until like people started paying attention and stuff like that. And I think she conquered that online sphere so easily because of just she just put stuff out all the time. She didn't really think too much about it. She was going to write a song, she's going to put it out in the world, and she's going to move on to the next thing. In a
Mm.
way, like, that artistry is like really like impressive, right? That kind of output is really impressive. But when I met her, she was really interested in playing playing shows. She wanted to like be part of a local scene. She wanted to see the other side of like what I think she would even call like a real musician.
Mm.
And so we started booking her, and she's got better, and her like at just adapting these songs to being live songs. I think a lot of the songs that she wrote, she had never intended to play live, so it was a little difficult at first to like kind of like translate that. And then this recent album, she's completely written in San Jose, or some of it has been older songs, but uh, the songs are great. The album is called Planet Fitness, and it's awesome. She's gone on a tour with AJJ right now. She just went on a tour with Cheekface earlier this year for like 2 months, like two big, like really big tours. So I mean, she really is like the kind of like the story of the modern musician, of somebody who pivoted from being an online artist and had sort of and still has those like that presence.
So encouraging. That is so encouraging. Did you, when you started Heavy Lemon, did you know, like, because I imagine you were a musician before Heavy Lemon. When you started, was that sort of the intention, knowing that, hey, like, online sphere is already too oversaturated. We need to build this local thing in order to support artists, or was it a little bit of a surprise to see what momentum you could create around different musicians?
To be honest, the reason why Heavy Lemon started, or the reason why I started playing shows, was this thing called tour debt. I think it's not really like talked about a lot in DIY circles, but the idea of tour debt is you go on tour and somebody books a show for you and they let you stay at their house, and like it's this really beautiful thing and everybody becomes new friends and it's awesome and stuff, and you have to repay that favor, not like monetarily, but like you have to like be like, I'm gonna set up a show for you when you come through with your bands, or if you know somebody that needs a show, like I can help you out, like favor for a favor. And you get, the more you tour, and especially with DIY touring, the more that happens. You start racking up all these people who you kind of owe favors to. And so when they come through to the Bay Area, which is like everybody on the West Coast, it's like you can't not do it. Like you can even skip LA, but you can't skip the Bay Area. And like, but they when they come through, you have to book a show for them, and it has to kind of be on that same level of like whatever they provided for you, right? Like you're like, oh, like if I know these people really well, I'm going to let them stay at my house and I'm going to book them this awesome show and it's going to be really fun. And so that's how it started, right? I'm like just I'm repaying favors and stuff like that. And then during the pandemic, after not being able to do that anymore, I realized how important it was to me and how much I wanted to facilitate and create infrastructure in San Jose specifically to be able to allow that to happen. And not only that, but to then also build your local support scene as well, because that was my biggest problem, finding other bands to play with, with these bands on tour that would bring people out. And they weren't just my like 15 20 friends or whatever. Like we needed to like get out there, we needed to like talk to people, we needed to like attract like live music listeners to know that there was a place they can go. Secondary became the goal of moving people from an online sphere and having them interact in the real world by like going out and seeing this thing, seeing how cool live music is, seeing how much what solidarity feels like, and like what the magic of just being in like that music can like create in a room of people who are all experiencing this thing at the same time, right? And then I think that when a local scene just happens and people see that there's someone doing that, and they're more encouraged to make art, they're more encouraged to like want to go out and play these shows because they know it's available to them, it's accessible to them. So in the same way that like streaming platforms have made listening to music really accessible, Heavy Lemon tries to make live music accessible to people of all ages, and not let their ability to pay for it become a barrier. That's like a lot of DIY philosophy, but yeah, I'm kind of rambling, so I'm gonna stop. But
no, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
I like how it's similar. I like the comparison with streaming, because with streaming, it has given us all of the accessibility to all of this music, but the consequence has actually been in a growing disparity of access to making music someone's living and making music a sustainable way of life for people. But the live scene, building live music communities, it sounds like that is attracting more people into the lifestyle and making it more sustainable for more people. So very, very opposite consequence, despite maybe a similar sort of expanding of access.
Yeah, it's people joke about like holding space for stuff, but like this is literally creating a space for this to happen. That's the goal.
Yeah, I've heard you talk a little bit about just the idea of third spaces as well. So that's kind of creating that space outside of the online sphere for folks, and for folks to go and have fun. How have you seen that play out? Have you had folks come up and be like, what experiences have you had from people who have been seeking that and have been sort of grateful to find this bastion?
I think the most encouraging part of this is when you see people come back to these shows again and again, or people who come to every show. And they talk to you, they feel welcome, they feel safe. Our shows attract a lot of like very queer young people. And I think that like that's pretty beautiful to me, especially like just knowing that like there's a place where people can feel like they don't have to like mask up or like socially mask. They can physically mask if they want. We provide those, but like socially mask, or like they can just be themselves. Like they can just be with their friends or just hang out in a place that's not their home or their school or their job. Like a place to like just hang out, that it's okay for them to be there, and not necessarily to drink. I think that's like one of the things that bums me out so much about adult nightlife, is that it all revolves around alcohol. The money, the amount of staff you have, like the infrastructure you put into your space, all revolves around being able to sell more drinks. And I don't fault that. I don't fault them for that at all. That's how it's been that way for hundreds of years, probably, right? Like there's no like there's no point in debating it. But the point of having a band play in a bar or a 21 and up place is so that that place can sell more drinks. The point of an all ages music venue is to attract people to come there to watch people play in like bands. Like in one of those scenarios, the band and the artist and the art is being used to basically advertise sales. And the other one is a celebration of art and community. And I think those are like very important differences of like when we talk about third spaces, of like what the intention of that space is actually is. So that's the reason why Heavy Lemon shows are all ages, and we will continue to do that forever.
That I think about that all the time. Just that live venues, like the alcohol like it is 100% built around, just like you said, built around the alcohol sales, and just it feels hard to imagine a way out of that, because like seeing the numbers, I'm like, yeah, it is. There's no way to make it work without something filling that giant hole of alcohol sales. And it's like, well, what could possibly fill that? I mean, maybe sustainable, like sort of having a community where you can guarantee, I mean, not guarantee, nothing's guaranteed, but a community where people more consistently come out just for the sake of, being with people that they're being around community. Maybe that is a bit of an answer, but yeah, bummer.
I think you bring up a good point, though, of why all ages DIY spaces are so hard to keep together, is because there has to be that sort of secondary like revenue stream in order to keep it alive. We all know that that like ticket sales alone will never sustain the vision as like everybody sees it, like in a way where everybody gets paid fairly and everybody is treated fairly. There's no way to just sustain it from just the ticket sales, from just the split. So with a DIY space, you have to think of an alternative like source of being able to keep it alive. I think there's a lot of really like good examples of that happening, where like there are two businesses that have like been combined. Our own spaces are all basically local businesses that are allowing us to use their space to host like a live show in, right? That in itself kind of gives you an idea of like there's a way this it can be sustainable and it can be good for everybody, and everybody does win in that situation. But you limit again like how big you can be, how like big the shows can be, everything else like that. As well as like there just being like this like kind of like another ceiling even at this level, where you can't book bigger venues because they're owned by like giant corporations, right? But I think that like an all ages space that had some other like thing tied to it, like I think originally when we were like partnering with a practice space where they had people renting rooms for rehearsal rooms, and then had like a space that was used for like live events. I think it actually worked really well, despite that place being run really badly and like being relatively unsafe. But I think that it was a good example of like you need something like that in order to be able to keep it awake, you know, keep it going.
Mm,
There has to be this thing that pays for it, and I think that like that's the reason why it's, you know, it's easy when you have a bar or something like that. You know, it's easy to know what your strategy is.
yeah.
Makes it more complicated when you take that out of it and you're trying to make this a space that like people under 21 can enjoy too.
Mm, 100%. Yeah. I'm curious, you mentioned that there's a huge ceiling when it comes to a lot of bigger venues just because they're owned by mega huge conglomerates. And there's that aspect. And I've also noticed an aspect where so often doors are closed just because there are like these brand names that if you're not affiliated with, people are like, no, I'm not even going to speak with you. Even if I feel like I shouldn't name names, but if you're not affiliated with these brand names, you know, you can bring a very good deal to folks, but like the door just simply will not open. Have you
Yeah.
found that? I mean, even though you're like one of the biggest promoters in the Bay Area, have you found that those doors still remain pretty closed or have they come ajar?
I haven't really attempted
Mm,
to book at some of the bigger places, mostly because of what you just said. That because I was afraid that you know, that the door wouldn't even be open.
mm,
Doing this in the music industry in general is very, very like who you know. Um, to kind of be successful, if you know more people, generally you can, you know, you can find some measure of success. I think that places like Neck of the Woods, like Bottom of the Hill in San Francisco, are great venues, and they still maintain their integrity, and they can still kind of like they can still do their thing. I think they like are great examples of like kind of holdouts, of like, you know, appealing to like the DIY community. They still have to, you know, they have their bottom line. They still have to make sure that like their shows make money. So they're not just booking anybody. There still is a level of gatekeeping there, but I think they do a great job. I think they like of vetting people and making sure that like, you know, the shows that they do have are good. But I think taking Heavy Lemon to that level, we're like at this weird precipice right now of like just being on that edge. Later this year, we booked a reunion show for Empire Emperor. I Was Lonely
so,
Estate, and that's going to be one of the bigger shows that we've booked. You know, the Shinobu Ginning Boys show in April was like also another like really big show for us, and so we know that like we're going to need to be able to have access to like 500 cap rooms at some point. Um, but those are all the best. All the best ones seem to be the ones that have either been acquired or they've been like sort of like they're aggressively gate kept, to
mhm.
kind of only allow, you know, certain access for certain promoters.
Yes.
Uh, but I have hope that that will change as what we're doing kind of grows and the community continues to grow.
Yeah. No, I
If
think,
if we can make the money, if we can get the bands that bring a lot of people out, they that's ultimately what they want, you know.
yeah. Yeah, I feel like it's very encouraging talking to different bands about, you know, I've had experiences where I've talked to bands about like, you know, they're working with different folks and I do hear them say things like, oh, we don't like working with this person because they were super rude to whoever. And like it's maybe good and bad that there's this sort of grapevine,
Yeah,
but it does mean that like if you're a good person who's cool and cares, like I like Heavy Lemon obviously is, I think that you are rewarded. So at least there's sort of that counter force against the mega conglomerates that like if you're just a good person who gives a shit, people do want to reward that.
yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
mean, it's so hard to understand what their motivations are, so I don't really try. But most
Mhm.
of the time, I'm just like, oh, they're there to they're there to make money. They're there to that's their sole goal. That's why they do what they're doing. And
Yeah.
even like I have some friends who like work for some of these companies,
Mhm.
and and they're people that do care. They're people that give a shit, right? They're people that love music and they love bands. They love playing live music, right? And they want to make a difference, right? They're there trying to like put in the work so that they like get the experience to be able to change the industry someday. That's admirable, right? That's something that's like inspiring. So I don't know. I have hope that like at some point with these companies that feel like a monopoly on sort of like a piece of the music industry uh eventually lose a little bit of their power just to like people just doing the thing just on their own, just doing it themselves.
I mean, I think there's something to just having that. Like, I don't think most of these mega conglomerates can say, like, I can be sure that Joey, Katie, blah, 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 are going
Yeah,
to come
yeah,
out to every show. Like, there is no
yeah, that's true.
loyalty or feeling like, oh, I'm going to show up because I'm going to see all my homies at the Heavy Lemon show. I'm not going to say that about a lot of
Nah,
the,
they
the
don't
Live
see
Nation show.
they don't see their showgoers as friends. They see them as customers.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
little. That's maybe a fundamental difference in how we all think about each other. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I wonder if it's just a consequence too of, I mean, you kind of touched on this. In America, the government largely does not subsidize the arts. And so
Absolutely.
it's very much like dog eat dog, crab pot situation where there is so little money in the whole thing overall. Well, I mean, some of these folks are making a lot of money, so I don't know, but there's
Some
relatively
of them.
little money at like at least at probably like the sub 1,000 event scale. So it's pretty gnarly. It's pretty gate kept maybe for that reason.
Yeah, maybe. I I don't know. I don't know. I like I thought I had a thought, but I don't really.
Yeah.
It's I like I want to say that like I want to say that like the disparity within the music industry has also always been there, and it's just kind of
Mm,
changed shape as technology has changed. But I think
yeah.
now, in particular, it's been relatively grim with just how streaming platforms have decided to split up their royalties, split up the pot. I think a lot of people there's like organizations like United Alliance of Musician Workers. They're like a group that is working with a few senators, like I think Rashida Tlaib is one of them, to kind of have this like affordable, musicians like life act or something like along those lines. I'm butchering all of these terms, but essentially what they're trying to do is they're trying to fight for like a standard of being able to recognize musicians as artists, as people who are also entrepreneurs, and to be able
Mm,
to give them some kind of consideration or like grant money or something, right? Where they get those things, right? I don't I don't think it will ever that like I don't think that act will ever. I think it may be a very long time. Something would drastically need to change for enough people to like vote that in. But at the same time, you see it happening at local governments, like in Seattle and like Reno, parts of Pennsylvania, like in Philly, in Tennessee, Virginia, done bunches of places in Maine as well, where they put a lot of money and grants towards making the
mm,
arts, like program, making sure that art programs just exist. I think that's the kind of the key. If you can't do this sort of like on the up and up by selling something and then like or like having some kind of service as well as a music venue,
mm,
then the other path to a sustainable all ages DIY, venue is with help from the government. In San Jose, in particular, it's historically not been the money has historically not been there for local artists or like improving local culture. A
mm,
lot of the money has been spent, uh, you know, essentially just revamping, or I forget what the term is, but they like basically, city improvement projects where they just kind of like assist gentrification in happening. Um, and that doesn't really do anything for local culture. That doesn't really help us. They hire like
Mm.
outside artists to like make our like the art that is in San Jose, and a lot of it's bad. Like it's like not enjoyable to see. But so I, not to like clown on them super hard, but then I go to a place like Arcata in Northern California. It's a small town right on the border between California and Oregon.
Mhm.
So little college town on the coast, and there's a space there called Outer Space Arcata, where basically it's exactly that. It's an all ages venue. People do shows there, but they don't have to worry about booking a million shows a month to just make their rent, because
Mhm.
you can tell that there's like a bunch of like city organizations there that have like made sure that like this place can exist and that a place for art and music can thrive and exist.
Mm.
That to me is like the best way of sustaining that stuff. But I don't know what it is. I think there are like new government administration right now. Current administration in San Jose has been doing things to like make all ages shows better. I know that there is some kind of grant out there for places that were formerly 21 and up, basically to have a certain number of all ages shows in
Mm.
a year, and that they give money to be able to like to help them be able to do that. That makes sense to me. That should happen more. I think that like California and the Bay Area is a wealthy enough place that like we can find the money. It's absolutely there. But yeah, having that actually happen is another thing. I think it takes a lot of effort that maybe not everyone has the expertise to be able to do yet.
Mm. As far as coordinating with the government and making the government amenable to and
Yeah,
supportive of art.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think like there's a nonprofit in San Jose called Crossroads San Jose,
Mm.
and they have made a lot of those types of efforts to sort of get more in front of people at the San Jose city government and try to get them to understand like what's happening is important and it's worth investing in.
Mm. I love that. I love the counter push. I mean it's grim. It's very grim, but
It's
I feel like I just with all the AI stuff, all of like everyone's addicted to screens. It does feel like we've kind of retracted from like involvement in the local community. I think like that's been sort of a trend for I don't know, probably like multiple decades now. And it feels like it's almost reaching a crux point where the internet is becoming this like horrible brain rot place, and we're like oh like that's not doing it anymore, and it's pushing people out. Or at least this is my very optimistic pro live music is on the ups, DIY is on the ups point of view. I don't know. Do you think am I overly enthusiastic, or will the robots kill us all?
No, I don't think the robots can. I don't think you're going to see robot bands, anytime soon. I don't think you're going to see like androids playing instruments like at your local coffee shop. I think that's. I mean, but I guess I'm making jokes, but I
Mhm.
I kind of am very like optimistic about it. Now I feel like more than ever with like the emergence of AI music, with companies like Spotify allowing like AI music to be
Oh,
on their platform,
this,
um, and how much more difficult it is to detect as it just gets. I hate to say it, but as it gets better,
mm,
as the models like learn more about like how humans make music, I'm sure you'll see much more of it. I'm sure it'll be flooding like a lot of these streaming platforms and stuff. At which point I hope that people like kind of like turn away from it and be like, I want to see something real. I want to see something that a human being has made. I want to see
mhm,
someone rocking out, and I want to feel like I want to go and be in that room and see what that feels like, instead of
yeah,
at home on their couch or like in their chair watching it on their computer or something. Like,
absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, I don't think you're being over enthusiastic. I think that's
Yeah.
also my feeling too. I hope so. I I
Yay.
mean, I've spent a lot of time doing this, and it's something I've loved doing for almost 20 years now, and I don't have
Mm.
any reason to stop and or want to.
Yeah. I guess speaking on that, I do want to go into the Chris lore. I feel
Oh,
like running Heavy Lemon, it's like I can tell you that you kind of have to, I imagine, be sort of the kind of behind the scenes, of course. Like you're in front of the scenes. I think everyone knows you, but like you do kind of have to be behind the scenes. But what is sort of how did you get it started in the music scene? Like how did it all begin for not Heavy Lemon, but you personally?
I'll try to do like a real quick history. So when
Yeah.
I was in when I was in high school, like in the year like 2000,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm dating myself, don't matter. But
You didn't have to
uh,
drop that.
it's
I'll bleep
okay.
it out.
In the early aughts, I'm an elder. What do they call them? I'm an elder millennial or whatever. Elder emo, gross. But when I was in high school in the year 2000, I think that there was like a real golden age of DIY music in the South Bay and in the Bay Area in general. There was a ton of venues. There were a lot of awesome bands, and I was introduced to sort of like how DIY like shows worked from just people who were doing, I guess, what I'm doing now. But that's what I did every weekend. I went to various places around the Bay Area just to go see like bands that I'd never heard of, or bands that I was really excited to see or anything. It was my entire life for a long time. After that, I decided that I should learn how to play music, and so I started a band with some friends in high school, and then we ended up getting really into screamo. We like thought screamo was really cool, even though it was a very like niche genre at the time. Like nobody was really doing it at all. Like the golden age of that, like proto screamo had like gone. Like all those bands were like done. Like there's no Jerome's Dream, there's no Seisha, there's no City of Caterpillar, but we were like all listening to those bands a lot, and so we started a band called Matsuri, and we were in that band for almost like 8 years. That's where I started accumulating a lot of my tour debt, is like just being on tour with that band a lot and meeting a lot of people and booking shows for them. We lived in a house called Texas Toast DIY. It also became a label and a
Oh.
place where we threw shows at our house, as well as a weird recording studio. We put out records, we put out tapes, we put out all this kind of stuff like that. And that was like my first like venture into like DIY or like punk like entrepreneurship of like trying to like help out your friends and put their records out for them and stuff like that, and just try to do something cool. Um, just live outside of try to create something outside of like what we think of as like the bigger music industry or like the main industry.
Mm.
Um, and that's kind of where it started. Our house eventually got torn down. Our band broke up, and then I went and started doing other things, and then eventually made my way back to being in bands after trying really hard to play video games for a living and smoke pot.
Really?
And
Oh, that's
then,
so fun. I don't know.
and that didn't work out very well. So I was just working, and then came back and realized that music and live music were something that was making me depressed if I didn't have it in my life. And so I decided to get back in it, start bands again. And then I'd been booking house shows for about 5 years before that. Pandemic comes around, it all goes to shit. You We revive. There's at this crazy show in San Jose where there's like 2,000 people at it in this parking lot,
Whoa.
and that this is like the RBS days, like Gulch and Scowl and like
Oh.
all these bands that like now everyone's like Drain plays, like all these like legendary bands that were like blowing up at the time and like had already been like pretty popular. But I think that like this like they were like catapulted at the very beginning. It like made me realize that there had been people during the pandemic while I had been like being stressed out at work. They had been writing music, and they had been getting ready to, like, when this all came back, to like really hit the ground running and just like be able to like go out there and be playing these big shows and like do all this really cool stuff, be part of this really cool community. Little kitty. Um and and it made me realize like something had changed, and that in how people thought of live music, and that it was very like, it was time to take it seriously. And so I decided to do Heavy Lemon and start booking shows under that. And for a while, it was just me by myself. And at the very beginning, like I think the first like
That's
maybe
all.
like I don't know, bunch of shows that I just didn't really have anybody helping me. And so I was doing the door and I was also doing sounds and I would do all the tear up, the cleanup and everything else like that. And I don't know, I just kept doing it until people just started showing up and helping me out. And that's
Wow.
that's where we are today.
Just picked up momentum. You said after the pandemic that something had changed in how people saw live music. Can you say more? Because I didn't experience that much DIY music pre-pandemic, so I'm always so curious.
In like 2019, we'd be lucky to have like, okay, in 2019, I saw Scowl in a preschool with that like 20 people were at,
Wow.
right? Like, and not like a different like lineup. It's like the lineup that plays like all the like Madison Square Garden today, you know, like it's like the energy wasn't there. It wasn't cool to go to these shows, right? It wasn't like something that you could like really like. It wasn't like really like wildly popular. Like these were just people. It was mostly you're playing to either other musicians that are just there and they know about it. And they're just everybody's friends. But there's not like a ton of people who are just like randomly like wild like walked in off the street. Like this is like a very like almost a very underground music scene. We were booking at a house called Trash House in Willow Glen. We were booking at an art gallery in Japan Town called 3F Gallery. But this was actually under my other show name company, which was Dutch Crunch DIY. I don't know what's with the food. I don't know. People ask me and I'm like, dude, I just really like bread. But
that's valid. People are like bread. Sounds great.
But with Heavy Lemon, it was definitely like, you know, the metaphor of it being the juice with of the juice being worth the squeeze. But I don't even know. I lost where I was going with this. But yeah, I don't. It just wasn't popular. It wasn't something cool to do when everybody's been shut away for a couple of years and they're not allowed to go out in public places like that, or like be in like rooms with like lots of people in badly ventilated rooms, which is like the worst thing you could do for COVID.
Yeah.
Right? Like, you know, this makes sense why people weren't doing that, but they were still very eager to like do it. Like people were like, I miss doing this. Or like people who were younger people who were like had spent their like last couple of years in high school where they normally probably would be going to these shows, hadn't gotten that chance, right? Didn't get a chance to like live a part of their youth. And there was just this excitement and this energy about it of just like everybody coming together, and like all the beef was squashed, right? Like any drama that had happened prior to that was like, whatever, we're here now, we love each other, whatever. It's very magical, right?
Oh my
Music is
God.
magic. But like but naturally I've seen that wane over the years, and I think that it's like taken a little bit more effort to keep people excited and just keep people like, it's not enough to just be like, all right, it's $15 and there's 4 bands here and you don't know anything about them, right? It's gotta be like, it's gotta be, you have to try harder than that.
I think you've been good at that. I mean, like just, you know, how hosting shows at like a dim sum restaurant, like that's fire. That's already like, what? Like that's amazing. And you know, the postering and the marketing and the community around it. I mean, I think it says a lot that like, I don't know, maybe this is not a fair comparison, but I think the post-pandemic massive drop off for festivals, like corporate festivals, versus what I see with like Heavy Lemon. I mean, I'm sure for everyone it's dropped off, but like for festivals, like they went from having their most profitable year ever to like having to like close. So, you know, there's something maybe more durable, more and less durable, but I think more durable about the community that you're building.
It's hard to say because like some of them do really well, right? Like Coachella still does really well. Lollapalooza has their one show. They're not like a tour anymore, but that show that always looks like it's like and there's tons of people there.
Yeah.
It looks fun. But then you see the other ones that do like have to close, or like why it is, and I'm not really sure if it's like the legacy festivals, like the ones that have been around for a long time and they have all this money behind it, that like that means that they're kind of too big to fail.
Mm.
And some of these other ones that are like relatively new, or like trying to like what I call like nostalgia bait, like bands that are like reuniting and they're like all on these like big. Screamo is like way guilty of this too, but like they're all on this, these big bills, or like these big festival bills, and it's just like bands you would probably expect to see like on an Ozfest or like a BFD like in the 90s, right? And you're just like,
Mm.
I'm just tired of seeing those bands. Like I'm just tired of seeing their names on like posters. I just want to see new bands. I want to see new music. I want to see fresh blood. I think for
Yeah.
me that's what it is. I just don't bother because I'm like, there's nobody on this bill I want to actually see.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's like I was talking with someone about this. It seems like there's a precarious position now where festivals are like, fuck, like we're like barely breaking even. And so they're like, I will book Modest Mouse again.
Yeah.
Always works. We'll do it again.
The old Isaac Brock reliable.
Yeah. But obviously then I think maybe they're suffering the consequence of that, where people are like, I saw them in 2008. I don't want
Yeah.
this anymore.
Well,
So maybe
I
there's
mean,
a pendulum.
the biggest travesty of it is you have all these festivals now, and they're willing to pay out big guarantees for some of these names who've been around for a long time, arguably, sure. They've whatever. But I'm not gonna pay $100 to go see Linkin Park, man. Like with a new singer. Like I just
Right.
uh
$100 is cheap too.
yeah, right. Like I'm like saying that as if it's like a lot, but I know it's like a relatively low
$400
amount.
tickets usually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. So I mean, the thing is that when you have that happen, and then all these bands do is they just wait for the fest invite, and they don't care about touring, or they don't care about like going out and doing this like in their own, like playing in their own hometowns a lot. I get when bigger artists get to that point, they have to be selective about the gigs that they take. Totally. Not going to argue with you. But if you were really about the art, if you really are about artistry, then that's what you're doing. You're out there, you're grinding. You're like you're doing the thing. If you're just waiting for a festival like invite so you can play to 2,000 people who may or may not be there to see you, it just seems so. It seems like cheating to me. It seems lazy is what it seems like to me, and you're depriving so many other people of doing anything else. Of like being able to see your band right around the country, people who can't afford a $400 ticket. And not only that, these venues that complain about not having enough acts. Honestly, if more of the festival bands were like going on these bigger touring packages, taking on support of younger bands or newer bands that were like coming through, that's how the music industry is actually supposed to work, right? That's how like ideally it should be. You have people who have been vetted, who have been around for a long time, and they're lifting other people up. But you can't do that if they don't actually tour. And they don't have to tour if they're getting paid large sums of money to play one show or 4 shows out of a year. But it is what it is. I don't know. I'm just complaining. Yeah.
No, it's so valid. It's so valid. I wonder why it's turned that way. I guess, yeah, it's just the festival. I mean, I guess it has to change now that festivals just don't have the same money outside of like the very like top tier. So maybe.
Yeah. And DIY festivals will fill the void too. That's like
Yeah.
my prediction for like the next 2 years.
Oh, that's so exciting. That's so exciting. That's what I've heard. Like niche down festivals. Like if you're not Coachella, like niche down. And I mean, Cali Kicks was a great example. I was like, dude, what? Like Screamo is popping. Like I was talking to some people there. They were like, yeah, like they were from North Bay, and they were just like, yeah, like Screamo is like everything for us. I was like, damn, what?
That's wild.
What happened? I missed this. Okay, I guess out of curiosity, so for folks that may be watching and are like, Heavy Lemon's dope, DIY shows are dope, I wanna build this in my community, wherever that is, what would you tell them other than get ready for a rocky ride? If that.
I mean, just go to shows. And that's the very first step for anyone that wants to get involved in music and at any level. Like you want to be a sound engineer, go to a show. See how they like how their sound set up. You want to play in a band, start by going to shows and seeing what bands are popular in your hometown. Like know who is around. Like this is who you know as industry is like an understatement. Like just introducing yourself and putting yourself out there means a lot more than like 100 or 400 likes on an Instagram post could, right? Like those are impactful things. Those are like moments that you will like grow to crave and like want to like create space for to have more of. But just go and just be inspired, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And then once it's time for you to book those shows or to go in tour debt and owe your friends a bunch of favors and do all those things, you'll have this sort of necessary context for how this all works and how it all is. There's a million unwritten rules for DIY and among musicians. You don't learn them unless you actually do the thing. And I think it starts with just going to shows, just going to your local shows, just meeting people, seeing who is doing things. And if there aren't any, then consider yourself to be the person that has to pioneer all that. And I am so sorry if that is you, because that will be a very hard, difficult thing to do, but it will probably be one of the most fulfilling things you ever do in your life.
Bars, Chris. Damn.
Yeah, totally.
I always sometimes I mourn that the music industry is so gatekept and it's like so much who you know. But then I realize that it does force people to show up, to hang out, to be a homie. And like, some of the gatekeeping is not great, but like, a lot of it is just like, just hang out and like be a positive member first before demanding things.
Absolutely. Yeah. You'll find that you'll go further, I think, if you approach like a music community that way first.
Yeah.
That's just being part of one.
Totally. Okay, last thing before we close out. Been doing this segment with folks, so gonna go through a couple different things and discuss either overrated or underrated.
Hell yeah. Okay.
Your take.
Right. Excellent. Okay. Love this.
All right. Let's see which one to start with. Okay. I'm so curious about your take on this one because like I don't know where you stand musically like all the way, but all right. Over under hyperpop.
Wow.
I knew this would get a reaction.
Hyperpop, overrated or underrated? I think it's still underrated. It's like probably the newest genre that's out there. Like as far as it goes, like sonically, it's like the most distinct out of like anything. You can combine a number of genres, but like hyperpop has like been its own thing for a long time, and I think it's like a niche genre that hit the mainstream in a weird way. But I think for most people, they don't really understand it quite yet. It's going to take a couple more evolutions. So I think it's underrated.
Underrated.
Valid.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to say. That's my technically opinion.
Very politically correct. Very, very politically. He's been PR trained, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Over or underrated? Dim sum at hardcore shows.
Underrated. You should have food at every show. Is what I think. If you have good food at every show, it's like another like level of like making the show like that much better. I think like that's one of the things that like this that we do really well is that we like have food and drinks at like there's like some kind of hospitality at most of our gigs for people to do. I think it's underrated. I think there needs to be more food at gigs, not just dim sum. Yeah. More just in general.
Everything.
Yeah. Start doing taco stands or like, whatever food pop-ups at your hardcore shows. Feed people.
That is actually really, now I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I realize there's rarely food
Yeah.
at shows, but like I would like, if there was like a bake stand, oh my
Yeah.
God, there's so many moments where like
You'd
I
kill
would
it.
crush a brownie. Okay, over underrated. Barefoot shoegaze to practice earthing with the pedals.
Barefoot shoegaze.
Yeah.
So they have to like hit the
Yeah.
pedals with their feet, their bare
Right,
feet.
right. Their dogs are out on the pedals.
This just seems painful for them. I just, overrated. I think shoegaze is overrated in general.
Really? Oh no!
I'm
You
such
just
I'm a hater.
the PR, the publicist is like, no.
Yeah. Sorry. I think
Why?
shoegaze is fine, but I don't understand why it got a jump in popularity that it did. I think it's good. I think post rock is good. I enjoy like a lot of bands that are under those monikers. But personally, I think there's too many shoegaze bands right now.
Mhm. Is that a Bay Area thing? I always
It's like
wondered
an East Coast thing. It's an East Coast thing
Oh,
for sure.
East Coast thing. Okay. Came over. I like that take. I feel like there was a big. I feel like that's like the performative male meme. Like one of the things is
Yeah,
like, I like shoegaze.
yeah, yeah, it totally is. Yeah, shoegaze is performative.
Okay, this one I'm gonna clarify what I mean. So over underrated moshing. Well, no. Oh, over underrated moshing in 2025 specifically. Like, are people? Yeah, I'll just leave it there.
I think the stuff people do in mosh, like, okay, I think it's overrated. I'm gonna say it because I think that people do stupid things in mosh pits now to like get in and like get a TikTok clip instead of like, you know, I feel like the real like outlet you get from like moshing is that you're able to just like bump into people and like be like moderately violent in like a somewhat controlled like way.
Mhm.
And that's the appeal of it. I think that when like that appeal has like stopped and it's become something else, or like it's like expressly about violence, I think
Mhm.
then it becomes overrated. I don't like I I don't think it's good. I don't think it's good for most people, but I know people have fun doing it, so I don't want to knock them.
I like that take. I like that take. I was at a mosh pit recently. It was for a sex ed
Yeah,
show up at
yeah.
the shop in Santa Rosa, and like I was like, oh, like I'll join the mosh pit, and then there's some dude with like his legs in the air, like
Yeah.
totally like flat, like I don't know, pinwheel kicking around the mosh pit, and I'm just like, I don't know how to deal with this. Like I can't
Yeah,
handle
that's
this
not moshing.
battle. Yeah.
My favorite interaction, like from very very long time ago, even was like maybe like early aughts. I was at a Bane show in Petaluma, like the hardcore band. Like Bane is like legendary. Like they've been around forever. They like everybody does the stupid, you know, thing where they like wave around. They do like ninja kicks and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
And then like the whole floor opened up and they like all like lined up. I kid you not. There was like maybe like 10 people that just like all lined up and were just doing their moves, just like not hitting each other, not touching each other, just like doing windmills and stuff. And this guy with like he's just like standing near it, like all this is like this dude in like like a hockey jersey is just like, I thought this was a rock show, not a dojo. And I think about that every time I see people do that now.
Oh my god.
It's been going on for years.
Oh my
But
god.
yeah, my favorite thing to say when
That
I
is
see people
beautiful.
dancing.
Holy shit, I'm gonna say that so often. I'm gonna show up at all the Gen Alpha DIY shows and be
There you
like,
go.
I thought this was a rock show.
Rock show, not a dojo.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love the melting pot of cultures that DIY shows. It's just someone
Yeah.
washes up and they're like, what is this?
Yeah, it was good. I
Oh, that
yeah,
is so
it's
funny.
really that was a really fun show, honestly. Only time I've ever seen Bane. I had to see him one
Wow.
time. I'm glad it was that time.
Are they still like playing?
I think so.
Oh, please. I
I
gotta see
don't
it
like
now.
keep up enough to like give a definitive answer, but I
Okay.
bet
I'm looking this up after, and I will make sure this happens. I need to see
Bane
this.
Central. Yeah, they just did a year. They're on a tour. They
Oh,
just got done with a European tour, so they're still
damn.
going strong. Don't you
Hell yeah.
worry.
All right, I'm gonna practice my windmill kick.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, next over under. This one's a practical one because I always wondered this. I got so many takes on this, like putting on shows, and like I still don't know what the truth is. Over underrated paper flyering in 2025.
Underrated. Underrated
Underrated.
because people don't do it as much. They just kind of put their posts on Instagram. I'm guilty of this.
Yeah.
We try to like hand out like sort of like little calendar like flyers because I still feel like it is a little bit wasteful. I'm not trying to waste a bunch of paper,
Yeah.
but um but I feel like I don't really get to see a lot of like flyers. And I think in SF and Oakland you probably see it more, but in like San Jose it's just like not really as much of a thing.
Yeah.
Like people just don't do it that much. And I know that like people want that. Like next year we like plan on like printing some of the flyers out on like bigger like sort of posters and let people take them if like they pay
Yeah.
for the show, they get a free poster or something.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people love how colorful and artistic our flyers are, and so they're so sad that they don't get to take a piece of it home with them.
Oh.
So I think it's underrated, and I'm doing something about it.
I love that. You have the solution. Yeah, your flyers are like they're so distinctly Heavy Lemon. Like I don't like you I feel like a Heavy Lemon flyer, and that's
Oh
dope.
yeah,
You got your
that
own
rock.
like art style going on with whoever
It's
does
true.
your flyers. It's cool.
We got a group of people
Yeah.
that I call the Flyer Farm. It's where we grow flyers, but but they're all really talented people, and we're really lucky that they are down to do this for us.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah, I feel you though on paper flyering, just for the culture of it. I feel like
Yeah.
at least even if it's not the most effective marketing funnel. I remember in Santa Cruz, they have like flyering is very much part of the culture there. And so there's like services where like dudes will take your flyers and like bike them around all of Santa Cruz for you and put them up for you. And it's, it's
That
the
rocks.
culture.
Dude,
I
hell yeah.
know. I know. Isn't that so cool? Like, it's just, yeah, it's very cultural. Okay, I guess last one. I hate to end on this note, but I feel like I know the answer. So, over underrated TikTok for music marketing.
What a hot topic.
You look so tired. You're like,
It's because okay, like you can't really deny like the impact that TikTok has on the rise of certain types of musicians, but I think that it mostly appeals. All right, I'm just gonna say them. It mostly appeals to people who want to be the kind of artist that Spotify wants you to be, and what I mean by that is, so I'm gonna say it's overrated. First of all, because I think that what Spotify wants is they want a lot of solo like songwriters or people who are like one man bands who are like kind of composing all like the music themselves and putting it out there and just like being these people that just like produce this music a lot, right? They like want that type of artist because they can justify a lot of what they have advertised as far as being able to make a living off of Spotify royalties. Or streaming royalties, right? And they also, do all these things that sort of like push people in that direction, right? To be like, that's what the algorithm or most people's algorithm or the playlist algorithm or whatever, like kind of like leans towards. But TikTok plays its part in this by like appealing to that same demographic. These are like individuals who are like just making videos, right? They're just doing this thing. And if they make enough of them, then the way that the TikTok algo will work is that it'll just, start spreading it out and it'll dial in on who wants to see this stuff. It's amazing, right? It's like one of those technological features that you wish that all social media had instead of whatever the hell like Meta does with their like platform and with their algorithms.
okay.
But But as a result of that, you then have to make the decision of whether or not you want to be this social media influencer or you want to be a musician. You can be both things if you try really hard, but that's really exhausting, and you're probably going to lean into one or the other if you're like thinking of like what's the strategy of like how I can like get my music out there. So I think for a lot of people the online thing is really it's tangible. They can see the numbers of the people that they reach. When you're playing a live show, you don't get that kind of hard data. You don't understand what your impact is or like what word of mouth is. It's like not really like tangible. But so I think the conception is that yes, it's great for marketing. It's awesome for marketing. I think it isn't, because it encourages passive listening to your music as opposed to people who are going to come out to see you play live. Yeah, got a lot of thoughts about that.
No, that was go off. That was very educational, I feel like, as well. And I never thought about that, like becoming the type of artist Spotify wants you to be. Because I think about some musicians and bands that are so dope in like the Bay. Everyone knows them in the Bay. Everyone, like, they play like once a month in the Bay and have like hella turnout, and their shows are amazing. But I'm like, I don't think like you look at them on Spotify and it's like, oh, it's like hardly any listeners, and you're like, that's not, that
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So there's like I like that distinction. Like Spotify does, discourage them.
If they had their way, they would want people to be able to take less royalty for like like algorithmic like priority or playlist priority. If they could do that legally, I'm sure they would have already rolled something out like that for like artists to do, like take that option, like the option of like making less money in order to make sure that you get heard more. It's very like a very like payola, like predatory like type of like practice. And I think that like I don't know. I know that was like something that was like on the table at one point. And now it's not. Because it's illegal.
That's the only thing stopping them. Well, that's depressing. Well,
yeah, sorry.
No,
so
great.
That's why I think it's overrated. I think digital music marketing is overrated. There, I said it. The most controversial take I've had on this thing today.
Well, I think the overall summary of today is live music, DIY music, underrated. Horrifically underrated and on the ups. So
absolutely
awesome. Well, before we close out, I also want to ask about Star 99. Y'all just came off of a tour, multiple tours. Was it multiple tours or kind of one run?
We went out for about a month in the spring. That was like more like a full US tour. We ended it with a fest in LA called Growing Up As Dumb, that's put on by our label Lauren Records. It was a really fun show. Got to meet a lot of our heroes and a lot of our friends that we hadn't seen in a long time. And we do have more that we haven't announced yet. Like that's gonna come up probably in like the next couple of weeks, probably. I'm not sure what the timing is, but yeah, they had some more exciting stuff that we're gonna be talking about pretty soon.
So gotta stay tuned for Star 99. I caught y'all for the first time at that house show, and that was just so dope. I like the sort of like hardcore vibe, but like very also like uplifting. I feel like it matches your personality, where it's like
that band is a bunch of people that used to play heavier music and now play this play pop music. That's you kind of hit it on the head. That's exactly what it is.
I love it. Well, awesome. Well, folks can catch you at Heavy Lemon on Instagram and Star 99 spelled out, right? Star.
That's right.
99 spelled out.
99, yep.
So you can stay tuned for cool stuff on both ends. I love how you gave us such suspense for unannounced teasers. I guess
stay tuned.
Right.
I said I'd write you